Good morning, Nigeria. Welcome to Ways Breakfast, the show interested in what you are saying and in conversations shaping our nations and Nigerians' daily life. Recently, Tokwe Faswa, the special advisor to the president on economic affairs in the vice president's office, was on record on live television stating that Nigeria is still a cheap country to live in. Citing the value of the naira against the Ghanaian cedi and comparing high rent in the UK to more affordable cost in Nigeria's luxury banana island. But here is the question. Does that statement match the lived reality of Nigerians today? With persistent inflation, food prices, and recurring economic challenges, many citizens argue that cheap doesn't feel like their truth. My name is Goodness Ide, and joining me this morning is my ever beautiful co-host Triumph Akiboye, and together we'll ask the tough questions, peel the back layers, and bring your voices into this debate. Let's dive in to meet my beautiful co-host. Good morning,
Triumph.
Good
morning. Goodness, morning. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Well, I'm fine. I mean, this day has been good, so I'm doing very well.
You look, beautiful this morning.
Whenever I wear red wine, that kind of color, I don't know. I think it attracts, or I don't know, maybe that color generally. So I guess.
So how was your way down here?
It was great. It was good. It was okay.
Okay, so for mine, there's something I even wanted to say this way that will even make you laugh. I was on the street, right, on our office street. I was walking down, and there was this young man that was walking beside me, going the other route. And the next thing, could you believe what he did?
What did he do?
He polluted the air. I was like, what? I had to look back, and he continued, and he acted like nothing was wrong.
So was he supposed to say that? Sorry, sis.
No, but he was right beside me. That was.
Was he inside the transport?
No. We're just walking, but he was very close.
But he walked away now.
And he walked away.
Hey, that's the side of saying sorry.
Intentional.
No, you know that sometimes it might not be intentional. You know that there are some kind of when you want to pass out, some will not tell you. So I guess that was what happened with the man. She said that he did not say anything. Was he supposed to say sorry?
But you knew I looked at you.
We are apologizing on his behalf.
Okay. There's no problem. All right, so let's take a short break right now. And when we return, we'll reflect on significant events in history and check today's headline on our newspaper. Stay tuned. Welcome back on today's breakfast show. Of course, we have a very hot topic to serve you this morning, and I hope you have your water with you. You have your, your tea to just take a little bit while we delve into the conversation. So, what are your thoughts on these historical milestones, shown previously? Share them with us in the comments section, and don't forget our phone lines are open on 07025007749 or 0701-4242-420. And if you haven't yet subscribed to a YouTube channel at Official Upgrade TV, click the subscribe button now like and share. And join us every morning right here on Go TV channel 145. And right now we move to the newspaper section where we discuss concerning the headlines making waves this morning. And I will be starting with the Punch newspaper, to be led by Triumph.
All right, so let us look at the stories making headline on the Punch News. Okay, so the first one we have here: federal government unveils agric reforms, moves to create 21 million jobs. Riders to this story: fresh incentives will boost food production, free Nigerians from seasonal dependency. This is coming from Shetima. AFAN, others endorse measures, seek timely intervention. Women farmers task federal government on loans, others. So this is not a new news. Federal government is about to start, a move to create 21 million jobs for, what's it called, in our agricultural sector, which I think is a great news, right? Although I think Chema was saying that maybe they could do better, but we also appreciate them. So this story is an interesting story that you're going to find when you pick up your papers in page 2. So a story you would find in page 21. Oil reforms drive $18.2 billion deals. This is coming from federal government. Tinubu returns to Abuja after cutting short Paris leave. I think it was just which they were saying that he's going to be traveling. I think the trip was not as great because our president is back to the country. Nama pushes for tariff hike. Airlines kick. Army arrests notorious IPOB commander in Imo. This is a story you would find in page 2 of the Punch News. Don't derail Awujale selection. Council wants ruling houses. And so another story, which is going to be my story of interest, 4 hospitalized as fire got to Lagos buildings. And so the last story here, federal government predicts fresh flooding in Lagos, 13 others. So these stories are the stories that I am just quickly going to be getting into. For the story as regards 4 hospitalized as fire got to Lagos buildings. So I think I was working yesterday and I saw a video circulating of bank. 4 yet to be identified persons are currently battling for their lives after fire gutted a 6-story building at the Afriland Tower, which houses a branch of the United Bank for Africa and other companies on broad streets in the Lagos Island area of Lagos State. Right? According to Punch, they said the first incident caused panic among occupants and passers-by in the busy commercial hubs. Now, I watched the video. Did you see that video? I mean, look at the video.
Okay.
Circulating online. It was a very, very terrible one. But unfortunately, I really don't know what, the agencies that were supposed to respond immediately. I don't know how fast their response was, but these were Nigerians just trying to save themselves. If you watch, they were putting things in place so that these people that are jumping down, and it really gets me thinking that what's going on? Why is it that when something is an emergency, we cannot treat it as an emergency? Because why is it that at this point, if you look at this video you're seeing right now, if you look at the window beside, you will see that they are still trying to break through. So people were still trapped inside the building. Although they were mentioning that, okay, they were trying to rescue them already. But as at this point, there was nobody. It was just them that were trying to, rescue one another. And it was quite the unfortunate one. There was a terrible fall of one man just, inside that video. People were trapped in that building. I really don't know that particular part. I was even thinking that it was their headquarters, that one that you find in CMS, the big one in CMS. But they said that it's not there. But I think it's around that area, this particular one. But it was not in my route because I was really looking forward to maybe seeing it. But it was not in my route going on. So it was quite the unfortunate one. And I really hope that...
and even the fire agencies and everything.
That's why I'm saying that
prompts to such
I'm not seeing
actions.
anything. As at this point now, they were not there yet. It was all this, you know. And these are the days where Agbero, look at that.
Yeah.
These are the days where Agbero come in handy. That's why in this life, as much as we used to come out to drag
important. Even the
Agbero
pimps
and all
in the
of that,
society.
regardless, they still, you know, come out to do whatever it is. You know, as much as we talk about these people, one thing that I have realized about them is that they are the ones that are quick to, you know, support. If they want to support you, they are going to go all out for you, right? And if they like you, they will go all out for you.
That even reminds me of a situation where I had my sister had a fire incident in their building, and she had a whole lot of fortune in that because she's a fashion designer, the one I spoke to you about. They called in fire emergency and everything. They could not even get there on time. So who were the people that rescued that situation? The people around the street, the Agberos that we claim to be, right? They were the one that came in to help her to do carry out a lot of things out of the house and everything. So it's just quite unfortunate that in this country, when we need something that urgent and important, we don't get quick responses, even in government's implementation of policies. That's why we keep on having policies. Is it just on paper? They're not effective.
Because I really think immediate response would have just been best for this kind of situation. Because if you look at it very well, people were still trapped inside the building. Now, according to the news that I was reading, that I was telling you about, now 4 yet to be identified persons, they are still battling for their lives. And if at this point, there were still people that were trapped in that building, they were still trying to get down. I mean, I watched the video. I think it was maybe that particular man that when he was trying to get down, it was a very, very terrible fall.
There will obviously be some little issues because jumping from a very high place down, and it's not a place that probably it's soft or anything.
They are getting down there. That's like 2 stories, you know, apart. So it's just a very sad story.
Let's move away from that. Let's look at what we have the Nigerian Tribune newspaper this morning. Above the masthead, it says, Okpebolo unveils transformative education reforms in Edo State. That story is on page 16 of the Nigerian Tribune newspaper. Besides that, we have Customs Consult Finance Ministry on alternative following suspension of 4% import levy. Below the masthead, the Tribune newspaper leads with how Buhari's government destroyed economy, says by Dogara. The writer says that the ex-president's administration's sprinting an injection of 22.7 trillion naira destroyed naira value. Beside that, we have upsurge in Lassa fever cases as deaths hit 162 in August, says the NCDC. And after that, we have petrol from Dangote refinery arrives USA for first time. Congratulations to Nigeria. I mean, you know, getting to export fuel to, you know, one of the biggest country in the world. It's, let's say, is a great accomplishment to Nigeria precisely. That's a good one. And we have relating to health, cannabis use may quadruple risk of developing diabetes. No, as usual, that's the story I'll be taking this one, because cannabis use is linked to an almost quadrupling in the risk of developing diabetes. This is a new study. So, mind you, it is no longer just sugar, because most people's mindset is that sugar is always the one, you know, giving diabetes, and we have different levels of diabetes patients. So now, a study has found that even cannabis can also risk of developing diabetes. The research presented at the year's annual meeting of the European Association of the Study of Diabetes in Vienna, Austria. They said that cannabis users at nearly 4 times greater risk of developing diabetes than non-users. And it's reported that it also increased by promoting insulin resistance, and even unhealthy eating habit. They've identified about 96,000 outpatients aged between 80 and 50 with cannabis-related diagnosis. That was between the year 2010 and 2018. So let's just quickly move away from that. That's just the story we can take on the news headlines this morning on the newspaper. So we'll take another short break, and when we come back, it's time to get you into today's topic. No, we are serving you hot this morning. I want to hear your opinion on the comment section, right? Because the topic says, is Nigeria still a cheap country? So please do stay with us as we return. All right, welcome back to today's breakfast show. As well as we've been talking that the topic today on this table is Nigeria still a cheap country? And yes, we've picked that comment up from Tokpe Fasuaz that says that Nigeria remains a cheap country to live in and has raised eyebrows. The Naira may stretch further than the CD, and Lagos rent may be lower than London's, but what does that mean for Nigerians struggling to afford, daily meal? Despite inflation rates reducing, food inflation remains high in the country, and the cost of living in Nigeria is also on the rise. Nigeria's purchasing power has decreased in the last few years. So, is Nigeria really a cheap country? And that's what we are going to be dissecting. Joining me on this table, I'll have God's Time is going to be having joining us in these conversations too. We'll be asking him, is really Nigeria still a cheap country? As well as I have my beautiful co-host, my wonderful Triumph Akinboye to also join in this conversation. So to start with, can a country be called cheap if incomes, remain stagnant while the cost of basics like food, transport, and rent keeps climbing? So yeah, I'm going to be first asking my co-host as I have God's Time joining us. Triumph, what do you say about this?
Okay, so first, when we are using the word cheap or expensive as relating to a country and another country, a comparison is really not great, right? Because the way of life, what you can afford in a particular country is different from another country. Let's use UK for example. They are two different countries that should not be compared. Now, when we talk about maybe Nigeria is cheap, Nigeria might not be cheap for somebody that cannot afford Nigeria. Mm-hmm. But I promise you, when you meet some people that actually have the money, they prefer to invest. Because they believe that, at least if I'm getting a house in Banana Island, because you mentioned Banana Island now, if I'm getting a house in Banana Island, it is actually going to be more affordable than buying a house in the UK, right? So the concept of whether Nigeria is cheap or not is based on who is saying it. that is my own opinion. It's based on who is saying it. Somebody who cannot afford it will not call it cheap. But someone who can afford it. So coming from what Tayo said, I would say that because of the positioning, because if you're trying to if you're in the UK now, if you change the value of the house that you will get somewhere maybe on the island and an apartment in the UK. So I just think that it is based on who is saying it and where you're saying it. Okay.
So, but for me, right, when you talk, when you said concerning if Nigeria is still a cheap country, first it was trying to weigh them out with another country. First of all, the economy in Nigeria is not something that we can even talk about. So if you are comparing Nigeria to UK, if you're in UK, their working hours are different. Their earning hours are different. Even their currency has more power than the Naira in Nigeria. So you can't even compare Naira to that place. Okay, if you are renting in UK or probably in, like, let's say London, it's more cheaper in Nigeria. Those people, they are earning in that currency, and they're also paying different things with that currency. But here in Nigeria, we have to speak for ourselves. How much is even the minimum wage, for crying out loud? There was last week or last 2 weeks we talked about rent issues, that when we look at the percentage, the statistics, 70% of everybody living in Nigeria, their 70% amount of money or their salary earned is going to rent. So how is Nigeria cheap? Look at the cost of food. I mean, even in some houses, they're even feeling it. They have to cut down. There are some people, they can't even afford 3 meals a day. Some people make it 101.
I can't believe that when I was much younger, I so much believe in 111. But now as an adult, I don't know, 11 is just like very... Sometimes even 1001. All
right, so let's hear from God's time, and if Dr. Chris is also on the call. Hello, God's time. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Good morning.
All right, yeah, good morning. So the topic this morning is talking about, is Nigeria still a cheap country? And yes, myself and my co-hosts have been discussing on what do we term as a cheap country? Because in Nigeria, it remains that food, it's now on the high side. Even transportation and even to pay house rent is climbing high. So how do you see, first, this question I'm asking you, that really, is Nigeria still a cheap country?
Well, if I'm to answer the question in one word, I would say no. Nigeria is not a cheap country. Okay. Answer the question in a word, no. Nigeria is not a cheap country. So I have to explain further. I believe that may be too much for some persons, but let's take, for example, a place where the amount of money that you earn in a month cannot feed you and your family, cannot take care of your basic necessity like power supply, and we don't even have power supply in the first place, talking about, let alone trying to afford it, right? So the minimum wage in Nigeria is 70,000 naira. And how much is rent in Nigeria in a month? The place where I live, a 3-bedroom flat, it goes nothing less than 500,000 naira. That's how much a 3-bedroom flat is rented for a year. If you are to divide that by 12 months, that would be like 45,000 for the rent per month. All right. So if you are to be paying rent 45,000 per month for with a salary of 70,000, how much will be left for you to take care of yourself, to feed? How much do you eat in a day? There is no Nigerian that eats less than 3,000 naira in a day, because when you go to the market, you want to go and buy something, 3,000 can't even buy anything in the first place. But let's assume you want to go and eat in an eatery in a place where food is already made, food is already available for you, and you want to spend 1,000 naira to buy food for yourself. It won't be enough, let alone buying for your wife, buying for your kids. So nobody can survive on 3,000 naira in Nigeria per day. And if it will be possible that you can survive on 5,000 naira in a month, that is 150,000. So living in Nigeria is not cheap, it's very expensive, it's difficult. That's the right word to even use.
Oh, thank you so much. I was even surprised when you made mention of that. To rent a three-bedroom flat is around 500,000 naira. I mean, in
Three-bedroom
Lagos,
flat, but they're not
three-bedroom
in
flat,
Lagos.
you're paying like 3 million naira before you can even get that kind of apartment. So, I
It's
mean,
definitely
even
not
in
in
states,
Lagos.
it varies. So that was quite amusing. I don't know if we have Dr. Chris with us. Okay. I'm trying to have something to say concerning that.
Okay, so I mean, I remember that when I was in school, to rent, I schooled in Kwara State.
Okay.
To rent a that's a self-contained apartment. That's the room, the kitchen, and then the bathroom. The kitchen and then yes, the toilet. So just to rent that, what you have to spend is just like 120 to actually get a very fantastic space.
Mm-hmm.
That 120,000 is not even going to pay agent fee in Lagos.
Mm-hmm.
And is a whole lot of difference. If we actually bring it down to cost of living in somewhere like Lagos, we all know that Lagos is not a cheap place to want to stay, right? Lagos is not a cheap place to want to stay.
Compared to even Banana Island.
Let's first talk about Lagos before talking about Banana Island. I mean, that's why I'm saying that let us address this based on the way the rich will address this thing that we're talking about is different from the way, the average Nigerian would address this. The average Nigerian would rather prefer to, secure an apartment maybe in the mainland because the money you're going to use to secure an apartment in Lagos Island is way different, not even in the same range of what you will use to secure that same apartment on the island.
Okay. So let's still continue with God's time. There's this one of the statements in Orchard, and I'm aware that you are also into trading. Sorry to bring that out here publicly. But I want to ask, in terms of your trading aspect, because you compared the Nigerian currency to the Ghanaian cedi, what do you think, or how is the power of the Naira when it comes to the market?
All right. Talking about FX, that is the foreign exchange. I don't want to use the word we are doomed. I'm a believer. I believe in Christ, and so I shouldn't be using some kind of words about the state of the nation. But practically, we're in for trouble because imagine someone comparing living in London, in the UK, in the United States, or in Ghana to the living conditions or standards in Nigeria simply because of the exchange rates. That is even dull to start with because the exchange rate speaks for itself. I have a friend in the United States who told me that she could make $2,000 in 2 weeks, right? $2,000 in 2 weeks. And she was not even an employed person. She is not an employee in any known company. She was just hustling 1 or 2 jobs because at that time she had not probably been able to use a certificate to work. So someone who is not certified, who is not a graduate from any university in the US, she was telling me she could earn $2,000 in 2 weeks. If you are to convert that to Nigerian naira, that is over 3 million naira. Is there any place where you can earn 3 million naira in 2 weeks, even with your certificate in Nigeria? That is not. So our exchange rate cannot be used. When you talk about the FX, you cannot, because of FX, and say if you rent a house in the United States or in the UK, it is £10,000. So when you convert it to Nigerian naira, that's about 15 million naira. So it's cheaper to rent a house in Nigeria. These are two different economies because it takes way less time to earn £10,000 in the UK or $10,000 in the US than it is to do so in Nigeria. Here in Nigeria, it might take you close to 3 to 10 years to earn 15 million naira as a worker. All right? So the exchange rate is so damning. It is poor. I remember when I was serving, and that was 2022, 2023, a dollar to naira was about 460, 500 naira. That's just 3 years ago. And 3 years' time, a dollar to naira is 1,005. That's like 3x of what it was before in 3 years. Who knows how much it's going to be in another 3 years? That is poor. That's not something you can speak good about. It affects every aspect of the economy. It affects our purchasing power. It affects how other countries perceive.
Okay, when he was even talking about the
See,
power,
boss, because our
okay,
money
sorry.
cannot do anything. Yeah.
Okay, God's time. We heard you. I think your connection. You were making mention of the power rate, right? That 3 years ago it was around 500 and something naira, and now we even have it like times three of that amount presently. And that will even lead me to the question, because in during his statement, he was comparing precisely Lagos. You know, Lagos is a city in Nigeria, that comparing Lagos to London in terms of the naira, and even compared naira to the CD. So I want to ask: does this really truly measure affordability, or does it mask Nigeria's deeper economic struggles? Because we are even stating concerning people that are married, how many square meals they can afford in a day, and even if you're not even cooking, if you want to buy food, that even 3,000 naira isn't even enough for one person. So what can you say about this? That does it really measure our affordability, or does it mask Nigeria's deeper economic struggles?
There was a breaking connection. I didn't get your question. What I heard last was Lagos Island.
Okay, so I was saying
Comparison.
in the conversation, right, Naira was compared to the Ghanaian CD, and even Lagos precisely in Nigeria was compared to living in London. So I was asking that, does this really show, exemplify the Nigeria's deeper economic struggles? And from what you've been saying on and on, even concerning the current exchange rate of the Naira to dollar, from 500 3 years ago to about 1,500 now, which is a whole lot within 3 years. And even now, we're even having how people can't even, afford to eat probably 3 square meals. Even 3,000 naira can't even get you, a complete food for the entire day. So how do you see this in such economy? Does it capture, or does it encapsulate the Nigeria's deeper economic struggles?
Yeah, everything we see around us tells us of how much chaos we are in. Every single thing. When you think of going to buy something for your kid and you just don't have the money to buy it. A lot of people have dreams in this country. There are people with visions, things they want to actually do to make the country better, but they cannot do so while there's no money in the first place. So comparing those who are the living standard of people who are living in Nigeria, in Lagos, especially comparing them to those living in other countries, doesn't really sit down well with me, because even though I have not lived in Lagos before, I've never lived in Lagos, but those who have been to Lagos, whom I've happened to interact with, they've told me about the deplorable state of Lagos, how the place is smelling, the place is not nice. I see videos of renters, let's say houses to be rented in Lagos, just a tiny toilet that they convert to a room. Converting a toilet to a room, you think this is a toilet, but this is a room for someone to live in. In some places, some people's kitchen is bigger than the room you have in Lagos. Some people's toilets here are bigger than the rooms you have in Lagos. So the living standard there is poor. People are compressing themselves in small spaces to live in. No ventilation, no proper ventilation, because there is no everywhere smelling, no vegetation, no forest, no good, better planting of trees everywhere. People are just kind of living in a place that is toxic to the head, toxic to the mental head, to the psychological makeup. People are just living in a state where it's hard to see your visions of tomorrow taking root. You cannot even see a place where you can anchor your dreams, your plans, concerning yourself, concerning your family, concerning your wife, concerning your business. Those who are surviving are just those people who happen to be connected to one or two persons who
Yeah.
have broken yeah. So you can't say that for everybody. It's just a microscopic few that are living above the standard.
Okay, so I just there's something that I'm just really thinking about, is something that you mentioned. You mentioned that compared to 3 years ago, there are certain things that if we want to get, you can get at certain prices, and then now you can't get it at that particular value. However, I think so. What I want us to really look at is the fact that if you're even thinking about it in years to come, whether we want to accept it or not, the same value that we are using to purchase is not the same value we are going to be using to purchase again. In my own opinion, I think the value, going up is not a bad thing. We cannot still be expecting to buy fuel for 50 naira, right? Because it is also an indication of whatever the state of the country is. Now, when we look at, some of these countries that we mentioned, if we go and look at, how much they are, buying certain things or renting houses maybe 20 years ago, it's not the same thing as now.
No, it has changed.
It has changed. It has increased. It's not, the value has gone up. So I am wondering that sometimes when we are talking about, but however in Nigeria, we are quick to say that, the rate is not the best, the rate is not good, the rate is not this, the rate is not that. Now, should we say that it shouldn't, maybe this value should not go up? Should we say that? And if we are not going to be saying that, are we now actually accepting that it is okay if there are certain things? Of course, I know that maybe the value of living is not increasing, because when we talk about the value, like, people are still not able to afford certain things. So I think maybe when we are talking about the fact that is Nigeria still a cheap country. Maybe it should be about the standard of life of people. That is what people can afford. But I really think that when it comes to value, is there really anything that we can do to value, stopping it from going up?
Step in here. When I look at the state of the country, I've been in Nigeria for more than 3 decades. I was born here. I was raised there. So I've seen a lot of things in this country. While I was in school a few years ago, my dad would send me 10,000 naira for my upkeep. And that 10,000 naira will take care of me for the whole month. Everything I'll have to buy, the handouts, whatever has to do with school comes under that 10,000 naira. And also to make that 10,000 naira then was also hard, all right? So getting 10,000 was hard, but it can take me for a whole month. Now, this is just like 10 years down the line, because I left that particular school in 2015, all right, before I went to the other school, which I left 2019. So 10 years ago, getting 10,000 naira was difficult, but it was not as difficult as now. But what it can buy is enough for a student for a month. Talking about my own personal experience. But right now, send me 200,000 naira. It won't go for a month. Talking about what you need to buy in that same 1 month to survive as a student. Any student that their parents is sending 100,000, 50,000 in a month, they are struggling, to be sincere. Because do you know how much it takes to enter a bus from your main gate to your class? You do that every day, as often as you need to move. And then you calculate that to move from your main gate, probably to your class, will cost you 200 naira. Through, that's 400 naira. If you multiply that times the, I don't know, maybe there are 20 school days in a month, right? Monday to Friday, which is 5 times 4, that would be 20. If you multiply 20 times 400 naira, that's about 80,000 naira, right? For transport alone. Is that 8,000 or 8,000? I can't remember exactly how much, but I'm trying to say that what you need to survive right now has to be more than what you need to survive in those days. And what you need to do to make that money has to be more also. So comparing 10 years ago and this particular time that we are living in, I can say that it's much more difficult to get the money to survive than before. Getting 10,000 there was hard, but not as difficult as it is. Compare it to getting 200,000 now, 100,000 now. Do you know what you have to do to get 200,000 now? You have to be a staff. You have to be working in a company. You have to be maybe level 10 or something, working somewhere, and you are being paid that kind of amount before you can make that in a month. So it's much more, it's worse. The value is worse. You can't compare them. You can't even say, as the value of dollar is going up, so the price of fuel is going up. And I think the standard of living is equal to the price of dollar. No, it shouldn't be. That's not how to compare it. How to compare it is, what can that 10,000 buy 10 years ago? And how can that 10,000 buy that same thing today? It's not possible. You can't buy it. So that's where I want to come in to say, comparing the value, you have to look at what is currently obtainable physically on ground, not on paper, not on your head like you were trying to do it. Do you understand me? I don't know whether I made any sense. If you have any question, you can ask me.
All right, so before we continue, guys, I would like to take a quick short break, and when we return, we'll continue with this conversation. Please stay tuned. Welcome back to today's breakfast show. Of course, we are still on the topic, is Nigeria still a cheap country? Because over the time, we've been having people, this jackpot syndrome, people have been leaving the country, for more greener pastures. I wouldn't say there are not greener pastures here in Nigeria. And that leaves me with, why is it that the value of what we can get, because as what Gustin was talking earlier on concerning the value of what he could get for a particular amount as at 3 years ago is not the same in this present time. And even looking at the just how to afford the affordability of buying things in the country. For instance, you want to get food, because those are the basic amenities. You need food, you need water, you need shelter. So if you are removing all those things from your hard-earned salary at the end of the month, how much is left for you, and how much is left for you to feed the family? Imagine even in this the civil workspace in Nigeria, where the minimum wage is 70,000 naira. I was even opportunity to see the cadre of payment. For instance, if you are in, I think, in level 7 or 6, their salary for a month is not even up to 150. So how are these people going to go? Because when he made that statement, I was wondering, like you said, basically, probably if he's speaking from the aspect of the wealthy, the rich, distinctly rich people in the country, we could see, because they are the one that could actually afford Banana Island. How many average Nigerians could afford Banana Island? Do you know how much is even?
They constitute, the lesser percentage of the number of people that are in the country. Yeah. I mean, the more people, the average people are more than the wealthy. One of the things that my friend used to say, she would say something like, the gap between the rich and the poor
is getting wider.
Especially in this Lagos. Is different. You can't even try to, want to compare it. So when we talk about, the gap between the rich and the poor. So if we're talking about the rich, aside that, is going to be, certain things is going to be affordable, even cheap. For example, some things that you can conveniently buy. Another person might not be able to conveniently buy them. And that was why I was trying to say that value going up really is not the issue. The question is, will people be able to afford it? Certain persons cannot afford it. But value will continue to go up. I
think from instance, from what you were saying, is that the value is going up, but even the earnings are not going up.
That's what I'm saying. So but people are not able to afford it. That's when we talk about the gap now, the poor are the ones, receiving the hit of it. Now, when the poor are the ones receiving the hit of it, that is where we now have to hold, the government responsible that, okay, why are these people not being able to afford these things? Some things that should be basic. When in Nigeria, the things that are basic are not so basic. It is in Nigeria that I've seen that when you say that basic amenities, it doesn't apply to my country.
Not at all.
It doesn't apply to my country because that basic thing is something that people now eventually have to keep, going far and wide to look for, to search for. People are having to do this and do that, which is really quite unfortunate.
Okay, let me ask Gustam this question. Gustam, I'm sure you're still with us. I want to ask, from your own perspective, what can you term or how can you classify that a country is cheap? Because you've said that the value of Naira, it's not the same. 3 years, it's not the same at this present day. So from your own aspect, what can you assess? How can you assess? Or what can you tell us that, oh, this country is actually cheap? Because when you talk about low prices in isolation or even the purchasing power of the people, so what are the things, as even a citizen of Nigeria, what are the things can you classify as, oh, this thing is cheap, or this country, or when can you label or term that, okay, yes, this country is cheap? At what point?
Okay, that is not something you can measure by one factor, right? But a lot goes into determining that. For example, if I'm to say that a country is cheap to live in, that means what the country pay me in return for the labor or the service I give unto them is enough to get my life running. All right. So if I am being paid a particular amount of money, and that money cannot afford basic things like shelter, food, or clothing, it is not cheap. All right. So in a place where even if the price of things are high, for example, let me explain to you something. I was to get a shoe from someone in the United States, and she told me that if I'm to get a shoe from the US, it will cost me $150. If you convert that to Naira, that's well above 200,000, going to like 300,000 already, right? So, but that same shoe, the same brand, the same make from the original company is sold in Nigeria 63,000 Naira. All right? So, someone who is going to buy that same shoe in the United States for $150 is paid high enough to be able to afford it at that amount without breaking the bank, without causing any problems. So then, $150 is cheap. But to us here, getting a shoe for 63,000 Naira is not cheap. Why? That is your minimum wage. Your minimum wage is just 70,000. So you are using 70,000, you are taking 63,000 from inside to buy a shoe. That means you don't have food for that month, you don't have rent for that month, you don't have clothes for that month, you can't do any of that for that month. So it is cheap if what you are being paid is enough to take care of you. The basic things that you need to do as a human being. Are you getting me? So that's what I term as being cheap. That's what it means to live in a place that is cheap. That's what I think it is.
Okay, let me ask Triumph that question. What do you term that a country is cheap?
What do I term that a country is cheap?
Yes.
Now, based on what we are talking about, that word cheap is even... Because when you say something is cheap, there's a way it's sounding in my ears that is not sounding right. I would have preferred something like maybe affordable. But the word cheap is making it look like, well, it is easy access, everything.
Everything there.
I don't know. There's a way it's really that I don't like. So I don't really want to stay with the word cheap. So let's leave the word cheap aside. Then let's come to the fact that what makes you think that, okay,
the country is very affordable.
Is very affordable to live in. Now, if you... For example, me as an average Nigerian, presently representing the voice of people, like the voice of people that they might not be able to talk, but then I get the opportunity to talk on their behalf. If you run a vox pop right now, I think based on what people say will determine whether the country is affordable or it is not affordable. And based on those people, I don't even need to, take the mic to them. I already know. You hear things like Ilule, Ilule, Ilule. So what Ilule means is that the country is hard. The country is hard. And why is it hard for them? Is because they cannot afford the same things that they will be able to afford naturally. But if these people, get the opportunity to be able to afford certain basic things, However, do you know that if you still meet these market people one day, you get to talk to them, they say things like, oh, I was able to afford this, I was able to do this, I was able to do that. So I think that let us even work on the basic things, the things that should be basic. Let it actually be basic. While some other things, let Nigerians, provide for certain things by themselves, but give them the platform to be able to actually explore those opportunities.
Okay, from my own stance, right, and this is me saying this to the special advisor, that before you can label a country that it is cheap, first of all, you need to look. Comparing Nigeria to UK is totally hard, because over there, education is free. I mean, if you're a citizen of in the UK, you have free access to education. You're not paying a dime. But in Nigeria, even if you're going to a public university, you still need to pay school fees. So how is that cheap? And also, even looking at the health sector, to receive health treatment is not cheap in Nigeria, because that's when you get to see, oh, you need to get this, you need to get this. Because why? They are not even being provided for. So if you say a country is cheap, meaning everybody is living comfortably, in the society, and they can afford to get things, their basic needs, Health is one of their basic needs. Free access to education is one of the basic needs of a citizen in a country. And even to get a shelter, how much is just one bedroom flat? Look at it over across the state. Precisely even in Lagos, if you don't have up to 600, 1 million, you can't even get a one-bedroom apartment. So how is that termed as cheap? Well, that's where we're going to be drawing the curtains. You remember that affordability is not measured by global comparisons, but by the daily realities of Nigerians. And as long as food, transport, and housing continue to squeeze household incomes, the claim that Nigeria is a cheap country remains far removed from reality. And yes, that is how we're going to end this conversation this morning. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Official Upgrade TV. Drop a comment, share your thoughts, and follow us on all our platforms. See you tomorrow, same time. Stay safe and stay aware.